Okay, pretty much there. Just getting the live stream sorted out and the controls. So let's go and jump inside the cockpit and make sure everything's working. Go and check the throws on the... Okay, so we have no throttles, which is interesting. Control options. Have we got a BAE146 set of controls? I think we do. I thought it was on 4 engine, but apparently not. I think I've got it set to BAE146 actually. Or I may have an Avro 100 in here. I can't remember what I've done now. So bear with me for a moment. If only the aeroplanes would use the same settings as each other, it would be a lot easier, wouldn't it? Perhaps I did use the 4 engine. Let's just try this again. I'm going to pull my throttle controls out and plug them back in again. Nothing. Ah, but they won't, will they? Because they haven't been released. Yeah, it's working. It's just me being silly. Oh, I'm glad I woke myself up there. Nothing like a bit of panic to wake you up. Okay, I just need to pull up a second screen here. So I need yet another keyboard. Slight rearrangement of desks going on behind or in front of your very eyes. With the usual story here, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 keyboards on the desk, and 1, 2, 3, 4 mice. And a second screen that's got 3 computers plugged into it with a screen switcher, which is not the best way of doing things, probably. So I'm just pulling up the instructions for the RJ. I'll stick it on the outside view while I'm getting ready. So bear with me, I'm nearly there. You'd think I'd get this stuff ready, wouldn't you, before I start the live stream? I got everything to do with the airplane ready, I just didn't get the second screen ready. Okay, so we are pretty much there. So inside the airplane, we're going to go and press Control 7. And we're going to go batteries 1 and 2, go to on, and then further overhead, nav lights go to on, no smoking goes to auto, cabin emergency goes to armed, then all of this top row go to on, anti-skid goes to on, autopilot master 1, anti-others already done, so anti-skid was on, lift spoilers yellow and green. APU gen goes to on, that's down here. And then we can put the left inner pump to on, and then APU start switch master goes to start. And we wait for the APU to come up, and because the gen is already on, we'll hear everything kick in, hopefully, when the airplane wakes up. So we just wait for that to happen. So this is a direct flight today, so there's going to be no point really putting a flight plan in. I can show you on Navigraph in a moment, we'll just wait for this to finish firing the airplane up. But there's going to be very little reason to bother. Let's just check the volume levels, make sure I'm coming through okay for you. Yeah, looks like it's okay. Okay, so the airplane's just come alive. We need to... I will go through the tablet just to get the fuel sorted out in a moment. Because obviously it's going to have the correct amount of fuel detailed in the flight plan. So we've done the APU. So then on the lower panel we go and flight deck emergency lights go to armed. Center tank transfer goes to auto. Ice detect goes to on. And then in the cockpit we slide over and we go and set the IRS systems to align. Now there is a way of shortcutting this. I talked about this on a previous flight. You can go straight to nav and then back to align, and it will then take 30 seconds. You have to do it quite quickly though, but I'm just going to do it on normal speed because we're not in a massive hurry. So then in the OFP app on the tablet, we're going to go and fetch our flight details from Simbrief, from Bangor to Goose Bay. I was going to say Goose Green, but that's a place in Britain. So yeah, from Bangor to Goose Bay. So you'll notice here, look, the flight plan that Simbrief generated is just direct. It hasn't bothered with any of the airways. And we'll be flying, if we go and have a look, oh, I've shut the browser down, that was rather clever of me, wasn't it? If we go and look in Simbrief, and go to dispatch, and go to view the current flight plan. So yeah, we're flying at 31,000 feet, so you can see, look, that direct route straight across. No messing around. It looks quite amusing, doesn't it? Look, leave on runway 33, then direct through Hull to CYYR, runway 26. So we'll be arranging basically our own landing at the other end. Okay. So having done that, we can come back out of here and go into aircraft. And do we want to import the payload? Yes, we do. So we'll start refueling. Refueling is complete. And we'll start loading the passengers.
Loading is complete.
And that's done as well. So we've got our correct numbers now for the weight, which is the important thing really. So then over in the cockpit, we're going to go and press B to calibrate the barometric pressure on the altimeters. Press D for any gyros. Obviously we've got no systems up and running yet, but it's just a little bit out of step. We can uncage the standby attitude indicator and then turn on EFIS, and we can slide over to the co-pilot side and turn their EFIS system on as well. Obviously it won't show an attitude indicator or navigation yet because there's nothing. This isn't aligned yet. These will start flashing when it's ready to be switched to nav, and it's not ready yet. You can switch it to nav now, it just makes it more inaccurate. I don't know whether it simulates it being inaccurate or not. I've not tried it. So that'll be a fun thing to try out one day. So then we're going to come over to the FMC while we're waiting for that to align, and we can go and program our flight in. So pause in it. We go and pick up the last position, drop it into the IRS position, and then go to routing, and we'll go and put in Bangor, which is what was it, KBGR, runway 33. So KBGR, runway 33. And going to CYYR runway 26, but that's on the approach information. So we just need to know CYYR. We can put a flight number in, so I'll put virtual flight airline 123. I'll just make something up. And we can put in any routing that we want to do along the way. So we've only got the one waypoint, which is Hull, so we may as well do that here. So H-U-L, and if we just put it in, it will say direct, because we haven't got an airway. And it's asking which one, so let's just go and double check that in LittleNavMap, what the coordinates of the waypoint are. Well, it's actually a DME look. 46.2. So it's the top one, it's the closest one. It usually is. So then we can activate that and execute the change. It's asking us to enter performance data next, so we'll go to the performance page. So it wants our gross weight. So if we go and jump back over to here, we can get our gross weight, which is 41.7. 41.7. Oh, do I need to clear this out? Oh no, it can type behind it. That's always good. Reserves. Now, to find that out, I guess the nice way to find that out would be to look, because I don't think this will give you your reserves on here. So, will this let us see the OFP? We probably have to come out, don't we? Go into the output page, and then we can see final reserves, 0.8 basically. So 0.8. Okay, cruise altitude was 31,000, so we can put 310 and it will understand that. Transition altitude on departure, that's going to be America, isn't it? So let's go and double check. Has it got it on the airport chart, or do we have to look on another chart to find that? Transition altitude. We may see. Let's go and open this up for Bangor. Open the charts and see what we've got. So SIDS, there are some SIDS. So it'll certainly be on the SID chart what the transition altitude is. There we go. 18. Yeah, it's 18,000. It's common with the rest of the US. So 18,000. Execute. If we wanted to, we could go and put the cruise wind and everything in. We don't have to, so we're going to leave it. And we're pretty much done. So let's go and look at the legs page. And yeah, we just got the one leg. So that's fairly straightforward. So has any of this aligned yet? Is it flashing over there yet? No. So that can sometimes take a few minutes. So while we're waiting for that, I guess we can go and have a look at the routing, or maybe start the engines up while we're sat here. So I'm just going to go down through my instructions, make sure I haven't missed anything too obvious. We've got the gross weight, so yeah, we're off to the master control panel now to go and set this up. So we know we are taking off on runway 33. So the actual runway direction is 330 degrees. So we're going to set the initial heading to 330. We'll set the initial courses also to 330. Whoa, that's got some acceleration on it, hasn't it? And it doesn't slow back down for a while either. Okay. We can go and put the flight directors on. Won't do any harm. We're just waiting for the inertial reference system to come alive. Maybe I should have done the shortcut method. 31,000. We're going to go and set this straight for the target. Okay. We can go and pre-select. Oh, will it let us pre-select LNAV before the INS system? No, it will do. That's really interesting. Quite commonly, you can't do that until in other aircraft until the INS system's working. We may not be able to engage it, maybe, but it will certainly let us pre-select it. So we could go and go for say 2,000 feet a minute climb out. We'll leave the... Oh, we need to set this for a decent speed for the target for the autopilot, so 200. So he probably wants about 180 in this. There we go. We can set the bugs on. Now we put the weights in, these numbers change dynamically, so you can look at this and say, go and look at the flap speed. So we'll be using 18 degrees, which is 149 knots then for the rotation. By the look of it, they're still not flashing over there, are they? So yeah, but just by clicking on the number, we'll make the markers appear on the indicated airspeed. While we're sat here messing around, we can go and put the TCAS on TA only. It's on system 1. Just looking down here, transponder system number 1. So that's all fine. Any sign of that winding up yet? No. Okay, let's go for engine start. We'll start at the gate, it's not going to hurt it. So, to start the engines, we need to go and turn all the pumps on. And we'll put the fasten seatbelt sign on as well while we're at it, just to be ultra correct about things. And then beacon light can go to on, which is way up here, out of the way. If I do this from the pilot view, you can see where it is, look, so it's above the co-pilot's head really. So yeah, fuel pumps can all go on, we've already done that, so they're on across the board. So start master goes to on, we pick an engine, number 4 first, we hit start, and we start watching the numbers come up on engine number 4. And when it goes past 10%, which it already has, we can go Control 6 to come over here easily and click here. Control 2 will bring us back over here to watch the numbers coming up, or we can go and look outside. And while we're waiting for the engine, hopefully... Yay, they've started flashing, so we can go to nav mode now. And suddenly the navigation displays and the attitude indicators spring into life. There is method to the madness. So the lights have gone out up here, so we can go to engine number 3, start it. I'll move around the cockpit this time so we actually see it. So we're looking down here, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, clunk. And then we wait overhead for the lights to go out, and then we can go for engine number 2. So doing things a little bit out of order because we were just waiting for the INS alignment. We really should have done pushback, but I guess with this having engines high on the wings, pushback's probably fine with engines started. We could do pushback now. I don't like multitasking too many things at once. So start engine number 2. So we're looking down there at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the clunk. And the final few lights will go out in a moment. Somebody asked me about this the other day, said, oh, you haven't done XYZ. No, it's not in the checklist until after engine start. So hydraulics are going to be showing problems, and because the pumps aren't on yet, because the engines are first. So the lights will slowly go out one after another until we've got everything up and running. And we are now ready for engine number 1. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10% wallop. Technical term. So, someone's put a comment in there. Morkel Myers is saying that he's just managed to do a flight without the video, or, you know, without referring to it. I refer to my procedures to start the airplanes all the time. I don't rely on memory because I will forget. And I think you'll find when the real pilots are doing it, that's the reason they have these. So that's the reason they run down and they confirm between each other that each step has been done. So I'm doing the same thing, but with my own version of it. So engines are started. Where's the starter? There it is. So master start can go off now because the engines are started. And then we can go across to the electric generators, which are down here. Gen 1 on, Gen 4 on. Let's do this from this view. It's slightly more clear, isn't it? And then packs. Pack 1, Pack 2 can come on, then the engine airs can come on, and then the lights will go out above for those as well. Brake fans go to auto. That's control 8 to go further up ahead, isn't it? So brake fans to auto. Hydraulics. Engine 2 pump to on, engine 3 pump to on. And the lights are all slowly going out. So dark is good. So screen heats come on, the auxiliary vane and the pitot heats come on. And then we've already done TCAS, so that's on my list. So, and then landing lights, taxi lights to down for taxi. And we'll do the pushback. Better late than never. Have we actually got a truck here for pushback? I don't think we have. So what we'll need to do is go into the, given that we need to turn as well, go into the aircraft tab, open up the pushback. We'll get rid of the chocks while we're at it. We'll come off the parking brake and go for an immediate. Is it going to let us turn right? Perhaps we have to click connect and do it its way. There we go. Oh, it's going to be close. Oh, we're going to go underneath the wing, it's fine. Good job we're smaller. So we'll just turn completely round, then we can have a look. We can see ourselves here. Yeah, we need to come out over there really, and then down that way. So we'll just wait for this to finish. Cancel that. Parking brake back on. Close the dialogue. Okay, so let's just calm this down a bit. So we're going to do an immediate left turn and then left again, go out to runway 33. So heading tracking on, head tracking on even. We have control. So we'll put this on to show the charts now. We could go for the airport chart, couldn't we? But is it going to show us? Can we show ourselves? Yeah, there we are, look. So we're about to do the left turn and go down towards runway 33. So let's just go and review while we're taxiing and what we have or haven't done. So we could go and tell the crew as well to go and get their seats for takeoff.
Cabin crew, please take your seats for takeoff.
Cabin is secured for departure.
I didn't pick a livery, so we've got this bizarre livery for this flight of an Aegean aircraft that's doing a flight from northeastern USA over to the far coast of Canada. It's a bit mad, isn't it? Okay, departing Bangor imminently. There is somebody coming in. Or is it? Yeah, I think it is. So we'll sit and wait and watch. Parking brake on. Okay, taxi out. Is the flight deck door open? Probably. I'll go fix that in a moment. I don't mind the I don't mind the passengers seeing what I'm up to be honest. I know that's not procedure, but I'll have a quick look. Do we get a lock down here for it? I'm not sure that we do. Flight deck door, lock. Well, that won't close it though, will it? Where's the click spot for it? There we go. Right, so landing lights go to on. And strobes go to on.
Check thrust. Airspeed alive.
The flaps haven't rotated this position yet. Just going to be gentle with it for a moment.
80 knots.
Are they?
Thrust
Oh, there we go. It's just taking a while. I forgot to set the flaps. There's always something.
Go. Rotate.
This is interesting. Look, I've got LNav on. I wondered if it would take it, and it has. Look, that's interesting. So we were way off, you know, because we took off perpendicular to our course. I wondered what would happen. and it's handled it. That amazes me. Normally, you wouldn't get it to, on aircraft of this era, they wouldn't make that turn because it's it's not on an intercept angle on the heading.
Traffic.
And this is why we're on TA mode.
Clear of conflict.
Okay, let's go and start increasing the speed. Flaps have come up now. So it has given itself like quite a shallow intercept onto the GPS track. I mean, if we really wanted to, we could go and set the heading bug to put ourselves onto the track in short order. Just go heading select. The aeroplane's going to turn in towards the track, and then we'll just make it a more shallow intercept as we get closer to it. Should we increase the range on this slightly? So we're on normal climb performance for the auto throttle. Let's go up to 250. So it's still managing 2,000 feet a minute. Say goodbye to Bangor. That was interesting actually, that because I'd forgotten to drop the flaps until we started rolling, that proves this does the takeoff checks. So in a more modern aeroplane, something like, I don't know, 777 or whatever, or the Airbus A380, there's one of the items on the ECAM screen is the takeoff check, and typically the easy way to do that is to put your foot on the toe brake and open the throttles, and if you have missed anything, the aeroplane will tell you. So obviously I didn't. I started rolling and I had missed something, and you heard the klaxon, but it doesn't tell you on this age of aircraft, it doesn't tell you what you haven't done, so it's up to you to figure it out. Oh, we've gone and flown straight through the, it's busy talking again, look, which I'm pretty good at. Busy talking and didn't line up on the track. So coming up for 10,000 feet. So landing lights come off, and the speed restriction below 10,000 is removed, so we can accelerate. So Jason is saying the 146 has a config check button on the pedestal above the parking brake. That's a really good question. I'm not sure. It's brake select. Let's have a look down here. Is there a config check anywhere? It's, to be honest, it's very, very different. So, and I haven't read the book about this part of it yet. Oh, here we go, config check. There it is, it's just moved. So yeah, you could press that down and you'll either hear a klaxon or you won't. We heard it as soon as we started rolling. So if we go back for lateral navigation now, oh, it's actually, yeah, it's going to turn in a little bit more steeply. So we're still on vertical speed at the moment. Now we've got to our target airspeed, let's go level change and see what the aeroplane can do. So it's giving it some more power. We'll have a play with this on the way. We'll try the different climb profiles out. So it's gone to about 93%-ish. And it's managing 1,700 feet a minute, 1,800 feet a minute. 19, 20, 2,000 feet a minute. 19, it's hovering around there. So let's see if it makes any difference if we go to max climb. So 94, 95-ish %. And it's now doing 280 knots and it's hanging on to 1900. So it hasn't actually made a huge change to the climb rate. Although we were a bit higher by the time we did it. So it's not a fair comparison. But you basically get another 3% then of power in max climb configuration. Do we get to switch this over? Although we don't. It's around about 25,000 feet usually that the modern airliners switch over to Mach number instead of indicated airspeed. But we've got the Mach number presented down here. It's just for selecting it. You can choose to select Mach number instead. Okay, so we're coming up to 16.5. At 18,000 feet we have to go to standard barometric pressure, remember. And then we have cruise for a very long time. Well, not a very long time, it's going to be a couple of hours this route. So you can see us wiggling around there. We've got to get all the way up to Goose Bay. 526 miles, so probably a couple of hours. Funny, isn't it? Probably, I imagine some of you wring your hands with me for experimenting with aeroplanes endlessly and trying things out to figure out how systems work with no regard for safety whatsoever. And I imagine if you go and check around this aeroplane, I haven't looked in the book, there's probably Easter eggs here and there with screws that you click on to make things appear and disappear. But yeah, without reading the book or going and reading their community pages, I wouldn't know. So we've just come through 18,000. So we want, wrong one. I always do that. We want 2992. And that's done the standby and the one over there as well. Cool. Have we got any radio beacons around that we can use along the way? So, what's the range on this one? 130 miles range. We should be able to pick that one up then. So, 11640. And there it goes. Doesn't have distance measuring though. It's rather interesting. It should have. Maybe we're just too far away for it to be working. What about this one here? MLT 11790. Ah, have I not turned on the distance measuring equipment? Is that what's going on? Probably not. And have I missed it completely? Is it down here somewhere? Be one of the radios, won't it? Oh my word, I've just realised you can move the chairs. I didn't realise that. Where is the DME? I thought it would have been on automatically, but you never know. There's going to be a power switch somewhere for the distance measuring. Oh, here it is. It's on standby. I'm being an idiot. Is it the same for... yeah, same for Nav2 as well. We now have distance measuring equipment. See, I told you it always turns into a test flight. 73 miles from the other one. Yeah, so you were absolutely right, Michelle. Is it that said that? Oh, sorry, no, Ace Airstream said it was on the left side of the mode control panel. Yep. Top marks, that man. So we were going to leave this on the chart view where we have to, sorry, wrong page. We have to exit this to go back into charts. And then we can zoom out and see, oh my word, that's the transatlantic airways, isn't it? Look at the mess they make on the map. So maybe we won't bother with the charts, seeing as we're just going to see a forest of transatlantic airways. We'll just use the map. There we go. If we zoom out a bit further, we get a different rendering, don't we? So that's where the VOR is that we just tuned into. Presque Isle. Okay, so we're going to be crossing over into Canadian airspace very, very soon. So we've got Nova Scotia there on the right, Halifax. I know a girl that lives in Nova Scotia, and I'm trying to remember, it's near this lake, and I can't remember the name of the place. Need to reach out to her, haven't spoken to her in ages. So the screw near the distance measuring equipment dial engages toga. There we go. Yeah, Mark's car said exactly the same about the DME. He spotted it. I must have missed it on my checklist. There's something I ought to go and correct. And do a new version of the checklist with little bits and pieces that we're learning along the way. Like the... make that part of the list to do the config check. That would be really useful. Okay, so we're still doing 280. We're coming up to 25,000 feet. I wonder if this will change the Mach number on its own. Let's see what happens. You'd expect it in about the next 1,000 or so feet for it to do it. Somewhere between 25 and 26. Oh, it's just done it, look. Yeah, so it will do it automatically. Should we go for Mach 0.68? Screaming along. The APU is still on. I know you're supposed to turn it off while you're in the climb. It's in my checklist as well about it. You leave it on during climb, but then you take it off later on. So let me go and check what notes I've actually got written here. Yeah, so APU air to off first. So control 7. And APU air was off anyway. That was interesting. And let me stop the APU. and then oh, sorry, APU gen, I missed that. Those two off. Okay, I'm just reading through the rest of my stuff. Yeah, so we can probably let the passengers have a wander about now. We're almost up to climb up there to cruise altitude. And should we go back to a normal climb now instead of max climb? It'd be interesting to see what max continuous thrust, what difference it makes. Should we try it? So we got 93% on norm climb. We had 95 on max climb. What's MCT going to do? It's going to try and do 97, but that's not going to happen. Oh dear, you'd have to go and have a read about that. So we'll go for norm climb. Should we go? I don't think it actually works, but we can go and turn on the weather radar. Take a while to warm up. We haven't got much to look at in the way of legs, have we? Look at the progress page though, which will give us our ETA 1546 Zulu. So at the moment we are on 1430, so about an hour and a half. Still ticking down towards that VOR that was some way off of our nose. Can we put information up on the navigation display, like the waypoints or the VORs even? I'm not sure that we can. Let's see what data does. It's giving you the VOR vector in green or yellow. Nav aids, okay, that might be it. So if we increase the range enough to see it, yeah, you can see them. Look, very cool. So that's the one we have tuned in. So we are able to follow GPS, but also tune the nav radios in independently to track bearings to VOR stations. So Jocko is saying, how is this aircraft able to make such steep approaches? It's to do with the way it's designed. This top half of the wing can hinge up, and underneath that whole area of the wing can come down at a crazy angle. So it can effectively crow brake. So it means, you know, the top half's pointing up, bottom half's hanging down. So you can literally come in at a 30-degree descent, holding about 170 knots, which I actually did the other day. But yeah, you can come in at crazy angles with it. Obviously it's not advisable, and the cockpit will shout at you rather angrily, but it won't break the aeroplane. It's worth pointing out, half the reason the spoilers are so massive when they lift up, you get a light here as well, lift spoilers, there we go. So when you get weight on wheels when you're in configuration for landing, the lift spoilers will come up on their own. And the reason for that is because you don't have reversers on these engines. So it uses aero braking, colossal amounts of aero braking to slow down quickly. If you want to see some spectacular footage, go and search on YouTube for either Avro 100s or BAE 146s landing at London City. And there's some pretty spectacular, you might call them crashes, where planes slammed into the ground, because it's a steep approach as well at London City. So within 1,000 feet, by the way, that's what the klaxon was. We are slightly out on the barometric pressure as well. Sorry, I'm doing this wrong again, aren't I? I'm using the wrong knob. And it won't go back in the middle. There we go. That should be 2992, not 2991. Yeah, so Jason's just said he's obviously gone and found the video. There is some spectacular footage of a 146 slamming into the ground in London City. And it survived it. The undercarriage on these things, you'll have seen it in the simulator. It's built like a tank. So yeah, in slamming into the runway, there's probably more chance of it damaging the runway than damaging the aeroplane. So Ryan's saying, what airline are we flying this time? We are in the BA, sorry, not the BA, the Avro 100, the RJ100. Okay, so the auto throttles have wound back to maintain the speed. So this has slightly better systems than the BA146. It has got servo actuated throttles this time, which it didn't have previously. I think we can leave this on norm when we are in cruise. So in the BAE146, the throttles didn't move, but they had servos where the engines could be commanded to go within about 5 or 10% of the lever positions. And if it couldn't do it, there was a row of arrow lights up here that would switch on to tell it that based on your throttle position, it couldn't achieve what you were asking it to do. But then it didn't have auto throttle in cruise, it could only do it in climb. If that makes any sense. So as soon as it got to altitude hold, the aircraft would just start accelerating. You know, the thrust modulation system, as it's called, had nothing to do with it once it was in cruise. So you can see we've switched to altitude hold automatically. Oh, the Avro Arrow was an amazing aeroplane. That was a political hatchet job, wasn't it? Similar to the TSR2 story. But again, it was a similar story. The job it was designed for, by the time it arrived, it was over budget and almost obsolete because of missiles becoming better and better. There's a lot of rose-tinted spectacles when people start talking about aeroplanes being cancelled, but there's usually very good reasons for them being cancelled. And certainly with the TSR2, everybody will say, oh, you know, it was all the Labour government's fault or whatever. But actually there was far more worse things wrong with the TSR2 that nobody ever really talks about, or they conveniently ignore. But I would imagine, I've not read about it in too much detail, but I imagine the Avro Arrow was a similar thing where it would have been so colossally expensive to actually put it into production. Buying something off the shelf suddenly made an awful lot of sense, even if they did have a spectacular aeroplane on their hands. Right, so let's go and... How far can we turn the range up on this thing? Not that far. And there's not much out in front of us, unfortunately, I don't think, in the way of radio beacons. No, there's nothing, which is why we're not seeing anything on here, look. So I've turned the range up to that's 300 miles out to here now, look, and we're seeing nothing. There's a couple of VORs out either side of us. So let's align the heading bug with the actual direction we're going. So that gives us some idea of the correction for the wind. And if you look in LittleNavMap, you'll actually see that. Look, yeah, we've got a 50 knot crosswind going on, which is why we're tracking left several degrees. So one journey's asking how the journey is going. It's going well. Just checking around everything, making sure everything's looking okay. What do we get in terms of cabin? Yeah, I've not played around with the cabin pressurization system. Obviously, it's not changing at the moment, so it's equalized itself. So I think it's pretty much automatic. You only really need to know how it works if things go wrong. And by the same token, your cabin temperature here is holding at about 22 degrees centigrade. So again, pretty much automatic. It's on auto, which makes sense. But yeah, unless you wanted to deviate from that, you don't really have to do much with it. I guess in the real aircraft, systems are variable. You know, they're not perfect like this simulation is showing it. So you might have to fiddle with warming the cabin or cooling it or whatever you're needing to do. Which is why you have packs. Which were here, and recirculation as well that you can do. So we're using fresh air at the moment, but you can recirculate. What effect that has on the system, you'd have to read the book for. So we're going to be in the air for a while. So after Goose Bay, where next? That's a good question. So at the moment we're rumbling across the sky towards Goose Bay. I imagine we'll be going for I'm not going to even try to pronounce it. Is it a Navigraph? Unless we use a... Has this got a water terminal? No, it hasn't. Although it's probably going to be frozen up, isn't it? I was going to say we could use an amphibious plane, or we could go, yeah. I don't know, we'll have to have a look. I'd be tempted to go for the closest airport, Navigraph, if that's how you pronounce it. And then over to Keflavik probably. There's a part of me when we get to Iceland that would love to do a little bit of an explore around the fjords up at the north coast, purely because of Husavik, which is the little fishing village that was in the movie Eurovision. Molly Sandon sang the song that was she sang it at the Oscars, didn't she? And was kind of cut off, which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, I think it would be good fun just to go and explore a little bit around Iceland. How realistic is the Avro? Somebody's asking. It's pretty good. Most things are simulated, and there's all sorts of failures you can simulate, which I haven't played with. So if you go into aircraft, can see all these things you can have go wrong. It's got a really good tablet as well. So you can see obviously we're in the OFP here. You can go to summary. But yeah, it's really good. All the switches and buttons you can see work, all the dials work, all the systems are simulated. The only thing I've never seen work so far was the weather, but I haven't read the book to know if it's actually operational or not. It's interesting that you can still do the split, the same as in the BAE 146, of using Nav1, Nav2, or using them independently. So essentially what that means is if you turn it to Nav1, it means both pilot and co-pilot instruments are using the Nav1 frequency. If you switch it to Nav2, then both pilot and co-pilot are using Nav2. If you have it on split, it means the pilot can use Nav1 with the navigation display on the left side, and the co-pilot can use Nav2 with the navigation display on the right side. That's if. I've not tried it. That's if these are independent on the navigation displays. Certainly the DME and the arrows will show both on both sides. So yeah, that'd be an interesting one to try out at some point. It's got lots of reference checklists and things built into the aeroplane, so you can pull out the paperwork and have a read, and you can rotate these books. So you've got various standard procedures, so noise abatement, takeoff, climb profile, cruise summary, descent summary. So it's all of the various steps as a reminder for the pilot and the co-pilot to run through, make sure they've done. Approach speeds, and you can put your own pages in. So it tells you in the documentation which folder to put them in, so you can have your own stuff in here, which I think is a fantastic idea. So to get rid of that, we just click on the gap where it came from and it slides it back away. In the same way as that, there's another clipboard that goes on here, which has got the checklists on it, but you can do the same thing. So you can rotate it, and you can flip through the pages, and you've got the various checklists, and again you can put your own pages in it if you wish. It tells you how to do it there, look. It's good, isn't it? Molly Sandon is in my neck of the woods. Yeah, she was amazing in that movie. Or sorry, her voice was amazing in that movie. It's interesting, isn't it? Because yeah, we had a Swedish singer singing Icelandic language in the movie. And she had to learn the Icelandic words, which are apparently quite tough to get right. So yeah, when we jump across to Iceland, I may well go coastal hopping with a GA aeroplane to go and have a look at Husavik. So we've now 83 miles gone past that VOR. Is there any radio beacons up here? There are. What are the ranges on them? 130 miles. There's a VOR here. Sorry, not VOR, Takeoff. 130. So 117.30 will pick it up when we're 130 miles out. So what we could do is add range rings to it. So that's when we'll pick it up. I don't know, seeing as this is a Boeing-ish kind of system, if we go to fixes, has it got fixes? No, it's got legs. Oh, here we are, fixes. So let's try it, see what happens. We won't see the circle yet though. Let's try it on something nearby. This one. What's the range on it? 130 miles anyway, but how far away is it from us? CYGP. Can we see it on here already? Yeah, YGP. So let's see if we can draw circles. CYGP. Radius. So, also radial and distance. So if you just put slash and a number, you should get a circle drawn. So say if we did 100 miles around YGP. Yay, it works. Very cool. So you can use this to draw on the navigation display. I didn't realise they'd implemented that. That's really useful sometimes. Very cool. So what we could do then is put in that destination one as, what was the name of the VOR? YYR. We could do it for the airport. It doesn't have to be a VOR. So CYYR. So if we put in the fix of CYYR and then put in slash 100, that will give us a 100-mile radius ring around the airport. So you'll see it come into view at some point. That's interesting. I'm just reading the live stream comments there. So Ronnie's saying he was told by a Lufthansa pilot they reduced the cabin temperature significantly solely to quieten passengers' noise down and make them more sleepy. So does the cold make you sleepy? I never realised that. You'd think the warm would, wouldn't you? Yeah, we've got completely the wrong livery, by the way, today, anybody that's joined late. I just picked the random livery. It's in the wrong part of the world to have this livery. Yeah, the fact, so I'm just reading the comment now about showing it to an old Avro pilot, the fact that it simulates the hardware so well is really cool. You know, being able to do the radius rings and to draw vectors and all the rest of it. But yeah, the major change from the 146 up to the Avro is you get the Boeing style. Is it Honeywell that make this one? I can never remember which is which. You get the Boeing style mode control panel for the autopilot. And yeah, this is a very Boeing system. The panel is different. The FMC panel, the buttons that go down here on the Boeing are up here, which is a little bit odd. I'd love to know what the reasoning was for that. Whether they were just being deliberately different. So we've gone 5 minutes late now, or later than we thought. It's probably the wind, isn't it? Let's have a look at the LittleNavMap. Yeah, there's an element of that wind that's in our face. And it's added 5 minutes on to our arrival time already. And you can see that radius ring turning up, like the 100-mile ring around the destination. So we're not going to be too long until we get towards descent. So Jocko is saying he's bought literally all of the partner aircraft. So have I. I bought the Aviator edition really as a bit of a thank you to Asobo for all of their work, and to find out what's in it, because I will be working my way through all of the aeroplanes. But yeah, I realise I have doubled up on buying most of it, but I'm not too worried about that. Thankfully, I make enough from the advertising on the YouTube channel to buy aeroplanes. It funds itself. If you actually factor in my time, it's a very poor return. But we do this for fun. I'm not doing this as a job. I've actually got a day job. This is not my job. Which is why I sometimes disappear for a few days, because I'm busy and stressed and don't really want to be doing anything busy or stressful in the evening. And learning new planes, as you all know, can be quite stressful. Especially if you're documenting them and people are waiting for your documentation. Although I'm always straight up and say that the documentation I create are functional guides. They're like cliff notes to get you up and running quickly. There's obviously a ton more learning you can do in any aeroplane to know it better. And that's the thing that really fascinates me, is how all the different systems interoperate with each other. Huge kudos to the developers. The code behind some of the systems implemented must be a nightmare. It just must be colossal state machines behind the scenes. I imagine they've developed over time all manner of ways of implementing different like logic gates and decisions, and to make sure sequences of things have happened, and matrices, and I can't even begin to imagine if you were going to program one of these aeroplanes from the ground up, where would you start? Would you make a system to make the system? Because almost certainly that's what the big developers do. The PNDGs and the Just Flights of this world will have frameworks in place to simulate things within, and they'll obviously change them and modify them and evolve them, but they won't start from scratch. They'll have ways of doing things. A bit like, I don't know, a carpenter putting a door in or something. They won't just go and start banging any old bit of wood in. They'll have a plan in mind of how to do it. That's interesting. I thought we pushed this out to Mach 0.7 earlier, and it's come back to 6.8. So obviously that's going to be down to barometric pressure changes, I guess, or the wind, maybe. I don't know. Why would it reduce the number on the Mach meter? Although barometric pressure will have changed, so what we're actually experiencing has changed, and it took 0.2 off the Mach number. Interesting. So Jocko's saying he's learnt a bit from my videos. Yeah, much appreciated for saying that, but all I'm really doing is sharing what I learn as I go along. So I've always been fascinated with aviation. I grew up within a stone's throw of RAF Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire in the UK. So yeah, when I was a kid, we'd go to visit friends who lived on the base, and we'd have to go through the security. It's interesting. When I was really young, there was almost no security around the edge of the base, and that all changed, obviously, because the world changed. And yeah, it became incredibly difficult to go on and off the base. It's a bit of a shame, really. But understandable, I guess. When I was in junior school, a lot of the kids at school were from American service families, because they, for a while in the, I guess, late 70s, early 80s, the Americans used RAF Bryce Norton alongside the RAF. So there was a squadron of B-52s, and I think American C-130s as well were there, but mostly B-52s. They were also at Upper Hayford, which was the main American base, but Hayford was decommissioned years ago now. Decades ago even. But yeah, there were a lot of American families in the area where I grew up. It was quite amusing because you'd see cars around being driven that they'd had shipped over, because they were obviously here for many years at a time, and you'd see things like Trans Ams and stuff like that just you wouldn't see otherwise. It was an interesting place to grow up. My memory of the Pontiac Trans Am was that most of them were made of more filler than actual metal. Right, before we get to top of descent, I'm going to go and make a coffee. So Jocko is saying his dad lived just down the road from RAF Finningley. He has hundreds of photos of the Vulcan. He said it got pretty scary during the Cuban Missile Crisis. Yeah, I could understand that. I'm guessing the B-52s that were in Europe, there was a program during the 70s, I don't know if it extended into the early 80s, where the US flew a continual armed presence over the North Sea. So they flew, I guess, big racetrack orbits with armed B-52s ready to fire at any moment, basically, or ready to drop. Flying basically a racetrack over the pole, I guess. I've seen it on a couple of documentaries talking about it, about those crews that, rotated and flew to give 24/7 coverage. Vladistat Airport, the largest GA airport in the country. Interesting. I wonder if it's available in the sim. I could go and cover that. Although I have to request it, and it's usually about a 48-hour turnaround, I've got access to anything that Orbex make. So I can ask them, and they'll usually let me have an airport. Funny enough, though, because of that turnaround, 75% probably of all the stuff I've ever shown from Orbex I've bought. Because I don't usually plan videos more than about an hour ahead. The same is true of Builds. I've bought an awful lot of their stuff, but they've also given me access to a lot of stuff as well. Not everything they make, but a lot of it. In terms of aeroplanes, it's a lot more hit and miss. A few of the smaller developers have reached out and given me in development aeroplanes to look at, but typically I go and buy them. And I actually prefer to buy them, because then I don't get stories of, oh, you know, them and us in terms of unfair treatment, and plus I like to support the developers as well. Okay, so there's been a lot of changes to Lelistat. I wonder if there's any up-to-date versions on FlightSim.2. Anyway, I was going to go make a coffee. Be back in a moment. Hey, I'm back. Let's just check the volume levels. Okay, it's pretty loud in here, isn't it? If I turn it down a bit, then I don't have to talk as loud either. So, Binky says, I remember when I was a kid going to Biggin Hill in the late 60s, sitting on my dad's shoulders, and a couple of EE lightning, English Electric Lightnings, coming from behind the crowd, then going vertical right above our heads. I saw a Lightning do that yeah, I would have been about 11 maybe. I went to one of the final air shows that was held at RAF Bryce Norton until I think Fairford took over not long after. And yeah, I remember watching the Vulcan do its thing. I remember watching the air show opened with a Vampire and a Venom flying about 10 feet off the ground, the length of the runway, flat out. Followed strangely by a VC-10 doing the same thing. Obviously these were the days before health and safety kicked in and stopped air shows being a disaster waiting to happen. But yeah, I remember seeing that VC-10 coming down the runway for a fast low pass, and it was literally 10-15 feet off the runway. They'd never be allowed to do anything like that anymore, would they? I mean, the Vampire and the Venom was, yeah, it was nuts. They were doing probably 350 knots or more, and they were only about 10 feet off the floor in tight formation. It was crazy. There's some pretty hair-raising stories about air shows in years gone by. I read one about one of the first RAF display formation squadrons, whatever you want to call them, flying hunters. They did some sort of, I don't know what you'd call the I don't know what you'd call it, what they were doing. They came down vertically over the field and fanned out over the area. I think it was somewhere like Gibraltar, or no, I don't think it was Gibraltar. It was somewhere, that part of the world somewhere, and they were obscured by cloud, and they didn't pull out, or they very nearly didn't pull out in time, and they missed the water by 100 feet or something. There was a Vulcan that crashed as well at an air show, wasn't there? That I'm not sure if it was written off, but it went into the dirt at the end of the runway. Yeah, it may have been Cyprus, maybe. I can't remember. Oh yeah, Mannheim in Germany was probably the worst. That was it Alpha Jets? There were several MiG-29s went into the flight. I shouldn't laugh really, but several MiG-29s went in, but thankfully nobody was hurt. We just smashed the plane up and made a big dent in the grass and shortened the spine of the pilots slightly, I imagine. Try out some of the views around the aeroplane. I've not really tried them yet. quite a lot of views, haven't they? So I guess we should do a bit of planning about what we're going to do when we get to Goose Bay. Because this has just got a direct flight plan in. Let's have a look at Navigraph. Fair change. Zoom out. Get rid of that chart that we were looking at. So we're coming in towards Goose Bay. Should we turn the aeroplane on? There it is. So we're about halfway. And I think it said runway 26, didn't it, on the flight plan? Yeah. So there's a non-directional beacon in line with 26. There's a VOR. There's a Tecan right on top of the airfield. So we've got scale down here. Have we got weather available to us? So what's the cloud coverage going to be like at ground level? Not great. But we're not seeing that in the sim, are we? It's just a mist. Let's have a look on windy.com. So we should be okay. So Navigraph wasn't showing it very accurately. So Remco, you're the same age as me. I was 73, not 72. Almost the same age. You're older than me. So what's the wind doing on the ground? Do we disregard? Let's have a look. 240 degrees, 3 knots. It's only 3 knots. We could get away with 08. Let's wait and see. When we're a bit closer, if it's close enough, we can go in. 3 knots is fine. It is a bit mad to go in the other end if we don't need to. I mean, we can do a visual landing anyway. It won't hurt, and it's fairly straightforward in the RJ100. Wind prefers runway 26. Yeah, but it's only 3 knots. It's hardly fast enough to even feel it. So we still got, oh, there is a wind on here. I didn't realise, look, down in the corner of the navigation display, it projects the wind. That'll be those sensors around the nose. If you go and have a look, you get all these little sensors. And underneath as well. It's pretty clever how they figure that out these days, because obviously you've got the inertial reference system which figures out where the aeroplane is. You've got the GPS also, which is figuring out, although I'm not sure, does this have, there's a lot about this in the book. Aircraft of this era, before GPS became normalized, had all sorts of clever ways of adjusting the inertial reference system in relation to known radio beacons. So they would, when inside their head, would triangulate and recalculate. Not much below us. Yeah, you can see, look, where there's texture and when there isn't. It has this pixelated texture for when it hasn't actually got anything for it. So it's got data over there, look, but nothing here. It's got data here. Nothing, that whole swathe, look, there's nothing there. So this is what the simulator looks like if it doesn't have the textures. This is what's in your 100 gigabytes, is the height and the the bitmaps. Okay, how are we doing? We're about 80 miles out from distance to go 199. So okay, 99 miles out from the edge of the 100 mile. We've run another few minutes later. That's just because of the wind, I guess. We could edge it forwards another few knots, it wouldn't hurt it. So just out of interest, let's pull out the clipboard and see what the official procedure says for approach. We want to rotate this, and then we can go having a scan through to see if there's anything special we need to know about. So, flaps 18 speed, comfortable 160 knots. .24 speeds. You also get this little flip chart here which gives you numbers as well. So you've got the speeds and the flap settings. Okay. So we're going to start reducing the range on the navigation display. So descending normally using the 3-to-1 rule, 30,000 feet, you're looking at 90 miles. So 3 miles per 1,000 feet. So if we just drop down to 10,000 feet initially, and we'll maneuver as we need to and then descend down the rest of the way. But we'll check the wind when we're a bit closer, because that 3 knots could have died away by the time we get there, in which case we don't need to worry. I'm not sure what the max tailwind is we can get away with the RJ100. I'm not sure what the book limit is for it, but most planes can take sort of up to 7-8 knots tailwind and they'll be okay. Well, the other day I landed with, because I hadn't checked the airport on the way, which was a good reminder about doing it, and we had about a 15 knot tailwind on the runway by accident because the wind had changed en route, and I had paid no attention to it because I was busy talking. Seems to be a common theme. Oh, something a bit of an aside from flying. If anybody watching plays chess, I quite often play chess on chess.com with the timer set for a few days per move. It's free to join chess.com, so if anybody would like to do that, I am John Beckett, same account name on chess.com, so you're free to feel free to challenge me to a chess game. Maybe we could even set up a little league or something among the flight sim community, playing chess on the internet against each other. Something to do while we're waiting on a long flight, isn't it? To go and make some chess moves. I just thought it might be a nice diversion. I'm not particularly good at chess. I'm better on longer time scales. The trouble is I play fast games when I'm waiting for things to happen on the computer at work, and I do awfully at it. I am rubbish at fast time scales. So, you know, 3 minutes each per game, and yeah, I get destroyed. I'm a lot better when I have time to think and use the analysis board to move the pieces around and try to figure things out in my head. I think the really great thing about chess.com is they use robots to work out who's cheating. So they look at the pattern of moves and how long it takes you to move and all that kind of stuff. But they also look at how accurate you're playing, and if you are matching many different computer models, you get flagged, which I think is fantastic. It's interesting, isn't it? For years and years, people were playing chess, and they were wondering, would a chess computer ever beat the top level chess players in the world? And yet now it's kind of an accepted fact that anybody with a mobile phone has got a computer capable of outplaying anybody on the planet, to the point that they use those computers, just like, you know, mobile apps, whatever, just to check that none of the top level players are actually cheating. So their moves are all being analysed and checked. But then you get crazy people like Magnus Carlsen or whoever who play like a computer, so it makes it more difficult to know if they were cheating or not. And they have to be x-rayed on the way into tournaments. Make sure they've got no computer hardware about their person. Or any broadcast devices. I guess that's when you get the whole Fisher kind of story happens with Spassky, wasn't it? Claiming all sorts of conspiracy theories. Almost at top of descent. Not very far to go. So 137 miles out from the destination. You can now see it on the map. I'm going to drop into Goose Bay. I've got Volanta running in the background, as I always do with these trips around the world. So we can put this into 3D and we can see our track as we edge towards our destination. And in Volanta we can go and pull up the satellite view as well. So we can see ourselves there over the the land. It's interesting, isn't it? Look, in the Mapbox data, there are elements up here where they've got different data sets that don't match. I wonder why. I'm sure the conspiracy theorists could have a field day with that. Okay, let's go and bring this down to 10,000 feet. We'll do it in a fairly sedate manner. So if we could either go level change or VNav isn't a working system on the aeroplane, so you can't press that button, but we can always just go vertical speed. And if we come down at 1,000 feet a minute and see where the green banana goes, it's appeared. So we should be able to get away with about 1,800 feet a minute descent in a glide. So the engines are coming back to 74%. You can see here, look, they haven't come anywhere near idle. So we could descend more steeply without even going to spoilers. So that's probably fine for us. Then we have some time to get below 250 knots, get the lights on, and figure out what we're going to do. A long way to go yet. Watch the altitude peel off as we descend. So while we're on our way in, let's go and find out the weather at the destination. So if we open Goose Bay and have a look at the weather, we've got 240, 3 knots. It's still 3 knots. Although, when does it tell you on this when the last update was? No. I think LittleNavMap might tell you that. On the NOAA data, it tells you a time offset, doesn't it? One 1322 Zulu. It's quite old data now, though. If we look in the aeroplane. Yeah. Okay, so maybe we will do a visual circuit to come in just to keep it happy. So let's go and reduce the range again. "103 miles to run." So Bossman's saying, have I got VNav to work? It doesn't have VNav. The button is there because this is a standard mode control panel that is bought as part of a kit, basically. So that's why the VNav button doesn't do anything. It's not wired up to anything. If you go and look in a 737, you'll see a scarily identical mode control panel. Well, it depends which version of the 737 actually, but And if you look at the FMC, this is slightly different, but the system inside it is very, very similar to the 737 series flight management computers. So this one's a Collins unit. I'm not sure who makes the mode control panels. I know it's Collins make them, Honeywell make them, there's a couple of other manufacturers as well. Are we getting an overspeed? Yes, we are. So let's just use the spoilers briefly. You can hear the airframe not liking it. It was clunking, wasn't it? The airframe was making noises. It didn't like going that fast. So I've just eased the spoilers open, which is actually the air brake. So it's opened the tail, that's what's slowing us down. So that was just by pulling the air brake lever here. Obviously if you go all the way, then you get the lift spoilers, and that's when the top of the wing hinges up in the air. Come off the spoilers now. "85 miles to run." Interesting. It's coming down at 2,300 feet a minute. That's not what we had commanded earlier. "18,000 feet. So we changed to local barometric pressure. Let's go and have a look. 30.55 inches, or 1034. I've done it again. I'm never going to learn, am I? 30.55, let's get this right. Look how much difference that's making to the altitude on the... we've gone back above 18,000. That's why you have a transition altitude and a transition level. They're usually a couple of thousand feet different, because the altitude can be, you know, up to 1,000 feet out. So that's why you need to keep the first usable flight level above the transition altitude by quite a way normally. So coming in towards Goose Bay. So the next thing we need to take note of is to drop to 250 knots when we get to 10,000 feet, get the landing lights on, and then start figuring out what we're going to do about landing. We can go and delete that fix, can't we? We're not using it anymore. 69 miles to run, dropping through 16,000 feet. Actually get to see some of this scenery. Not that it's quite stark out here, isn't it? And again, look, missing scenery all over the place. There's nothing up here. There's no textures for it in the database. There is over there, just not here. There's some more over there, look, of real data. So let's have a look at the let's have a look at the chart for the airport. So if we're going to follow instruction to come in runway 26 for the wind, which is still only 3 knots, but oh well. We'll turn 75 degrees. What's the wind doing on the ground though? What actual direction was it? 275 knots it's saying. No, it's got stronger. Okay. So we'll turn to 75 degrees. At about the point, that would make sense, wouldn't it? To fly straight for the Goose Bay VOR and then use that as our turning reference. So what's the elevation? 160 feet. So we want to be, this is going to be easier to figure out in LittleNavMap actually. So that's 3 miles. So about 1,000 feet when we get to that point. So say if we say 2,000 feet at the VOR, and if we're coming in from here, so when we're about 8 miles out, we turn right to 75 degrees. Because if we were to draw a range ring on the airport, which is what the GPS is measuring us to, or is it? Let's have a quick look. There's nothing in the legs page, so therefore it hasn't got the approach. We didn't program it, that'd be why. So we want ILS Z26. There is no star. Execute that. Go and look in the legs page. There'll probably be a, yeah, look, it's doing a right turn to put us onto a vector. Interesting. And then to turn back in, but we're not going to follow it. We're going to turn right and go heading select. So it's going MOBA, MB26 and then in. So if we go and have a look on here, MOBA's way out here. Is it going direct to MOBA? CB26 first. Where is CB26? It's further out than MOBA. Is that it? Yeah, it's underneath there, look. Oh my word. So it's giving it like about a 15 mile, or no, less than that, about 14 mile approach. So the aeroplane is obviously intersecting that route. So it would make sense before we get too close. If we want to cut this off and make a nicer turn for ourselves, we'll go direct to Massin before we get to CB26. And it will just make the corner a bit easier. So we are just coming up for 10,000 feet, which is very timely. So we're going to drop our speed to 250 to get below 10,000 feet now. Now we've got a longer run in now, so it's no longer a concern about where we are. So there's the runway. So if we go and measure from there, there's 8 miles. So we want to be, just put a little marker here, we want to be at 2,600 feet, was it? No, what was the elevation of the airport? $160 feet. So yeah, about 2,700 feet when we come in through this mark. So if we're at 3,000 making the turn, that gives us plenty of time. And of course the weather is not great. It's always the way, isn't it? So at 250 knots, let's reduce the range on the navigation display again. So we got about 40 miles until we turn. And we want to be at about 3,000 feet by the time we turn. So we've got to lose 7,000 feet, which won't take very long at all. There's Goose Bay. So, we're at 10,000 feet, we're going to go and put the landing lights on. I've just realised I've done most of this flight without using head tracking, haven't I? It's quite nice sometimes to use head tracking. Probably makes you feel sick though. So what's on the card over here on the wall? Okay, it's just the technical information. Although there's some reference numbers there as well, look. Bird impact. Interesting. So I'm going to turn the head tracking off for a minute. So let's start descending back down to 3,000 feet then. We want to go and put the seatbelt signs on, really, don't we? Before we go any further. Here comes the green banana. So are we actually getting any decent scenery yet? Yeah, it's slowly improving. It's still low resolution though. Yeah, look. Whole swathes of non-existent textures. Which you wouldn't be surprised about. This is an area of the world that not many people are going to bother flying around. So, just reading down, DC-9 and Vickers VC-10 are planes I would be very happy to spend money on if someone were to make them. My dad is a huge fan of the VC-10 because we grew up, you know, well, we lived next door to Bryce Norton for so long. There was a study level VC-10 for, no, was it FSX or P3D? Be careful what you wish for with the VC-10. I would be surprised if anybody made it. It's going to be far more difficult to navigate with than anything we've got in the sim. It fits into that in-between period of when the navigation systems started to appear. So it's got an inertial reference system, and it had, I think it had late in life GPS. It's also got VOR radios, but none of them are connected to each other. So there's an awful lot of triplicate entry of information. As far as I understand. So yeah, I read up on it quite some time ago, but the VC-10 is a nightmare. And there was a good reason. They had an engineer and a navigator and a pilot and a co-pilot. So it would probably fall into the same bracket of things like the Constellation, which obviously is from an earlier era, but in the sim, the workload is so high you have to have an automated flight engineer to help you out. Because there's too much to do for one person. Unless they give you shortcuts in the cockpit to do things quickly, which they didn't with the Constellation. And it made it a nightmare because you couldn't adjust the oil flaps, you know, the cooling flaps, or the radiator flaps on the engines fast enough. In the real world, you would have held your hand across all the switches, and you couldn't do that because they wouldn't allow you to map multiple switches to one button. It wouldn't let it do it, which was a bit of a nightmare. So as soon as we make the turn back towards the airfield, we will bring our speed down, but until we get there, there's no point. So there's the airfield, there's our runway. mean, we could go airshow style and bring this in very quickly and easily, but I think having done this semi-accurately on the way in, it'd be a shame to shortcut it now, wouldn't it? Let's do it by the book for a change. So barometric pressure is done, landing lights are on. Let's reduce the range on this once more. So once we make the turn in towards the airfield, we can actually figure it out. So once we come past this mark, so about 8 miles out, if you wanted to simulate what would be a 3-degree glide slope, we'd come into that about 2,700 feet then, and then descend at about, is it 600 or 700 feet a minute? Something like that, isn't it? So we could do it on vertical speed and pretty much simulate an ILS approach without ILS. So that was just telling us we were within 1,000 feet of our target altitude. We're cruising along 3,000 feet, starting to turn back in towards Goose Bay. It's interesting, I don't think they give you any controls in the FMC to be able to choose whether you fly over a waypoint or whether it rounds it off. I'm not sure they give you, I'd have to have a read about it to see if they give you any option around that. So let's go and get the heading bug going the same direction as the runway. Be interesting to see if this just carries on the turn. So we need to come round for, yeah, we'll leave it at 3,000. We can help this out by bringing the speed down now. Give it some spoilers, or give it some brake I should say, so you can see the tail's opened up. So that's going to shorten the radius. Yeah, it's turning inside the corner. I wasn't sure if it was going to, or if it would fly off the end and overlap and then loop back in. So that's interesting that it's done that. So we're down 280 knots. So we'll go for first stage of flaps. Notice it won't let us go any faster than, any slower, sorry, than about 178-ish in the configuration we're in. So as we're doing this, oh, we have company. An F-18 has come out to watch us come in. Yeah, it has overshot, look, which is fine. But it may not turn quickly enough for our liking. So what we may do is go heading mode, go heading select, And we can change the rate of turn. I think it's on maximum already. So if we go for the next stage of flap and then slow this down a bit further and go for gear as well. So you can see distance about 5.6. Yeah, we need to start descending. Will it let us? No, it won't. How bizarre. Oh, it's because we haven't set the altitude target for down to the ground. So it was about 100 feet, wasn't it? So where was MB26 then? It's right before the apron. So we want to come down a bit steeper. We should see the runway fairly soon, pretty much straight in front of us. And look at that wind. We were told to come in 2.6, but the wind is has completely turned around. We have visuals. I'm just going to center this up. There we go. That's better. Let's turn the auto throttle off. Full flaps. Let's get on the center line. We can just about make out the pappy lights. It's an interesting aeroplane. Look at how big the flaps are. Huge.
1,000.
Cabin is secured.
Yeah, that wind is swirling around. It's kicking us around a little bit. Pappy lights are looking good.
500.
These trees are getting quite close to the aeroplane. I'm staying high on purpose and the pappies are showing it, look. The trees were starting to look
Minimums.
pretty close.
$100.
Air brakes out.
50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
Ground idle. Spoilers, the yellow and green.
See what I mean about those spoilers with the flaps? Okay, control 8. Was it strobes can come off as we come off the runway, and we're just going to park up. Yeah, we did this a bit more by the book. The screaming Stuka dive into Bilbao was not perfect. Is there any terminals here? Are we on the wrong side of the airfield for the passengers side? I'm not sure what it looks like. Oh, there's probably a military airfield, isn't it? Let's go and park over next to this turboprop. Okay, so they put the sound on, haven't they, in the back? That always makes me laugh in this aeroplane, I don't know why. We should really have the APU on because we have no guarantee of having ground power. I don't know if we could do that in the tablet to say give us ground power. I'm not sure if it works. Oh, I'd never looked in here before. So it can do state saving. That's really interesting because then you could make sure you have to do things correctly. So it's got integration with GSX as well. That's something I've never looked at, GSX. There's probably no point with the new sim coming out, but we'll wait and see. What did I come in here for? We'll put some chocks in place. Ground power, we'll request it. External AC on. External AC power available. Interesting. Anyway.
Cabin crew, doors to manual and
I just wonder if you can get away with using AC or if it will kill off everything after the engines die. Yeah, it's like it's not using it. Although that's working. Well, maybe it does. Anyway, let's go and turn things off. leave the generators, although they're the engine generators, we're not using them, are we? Hydraulic pumps can come, sorry, the fuel pumps can come off. The hydraulic pumps can come off. The avionics systems can go off if I can hit the switches in the correct orders. Anti-skid can come off, auto. The brake fans can come off. The beacon light can come off, the nav light can come off. Obviously you should have a proper checklist for this, and I don't have one to hand, so I'm just checking around things. I'm not leaving things in ridiculous situations. You should have had the taxi lights off as soon as we parked, by the way. But let people get up. And obviously we could go and turn everything off. They lose their power in the back. Oh, I do apologise for the loss of power, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm turning the airplane off. That shut them up, didn't it? Should we go and open the door? And put the stairs out. There we go. We got a bit of an icing problem. That's happened since we got here. Although I guess we are fairly well north, aren't we? What's the outside air temperature up here? I didn't even look. -8. That would explain it. And we did see that there was a lot of mist around, wasn't there? So that's literally been since we turned everything off. The airplane's frozen up like an icicle. That's great. God, it makes you feel cold looking at it, doesn't it? But it's -8 and you could see the mist on the way in. There's obviously moisture in the air and it's collecting rather marvellously all over the airplane. But if you wait long enough, the whole thing will just turn into a giant snowball. So there we go. We've arrived at Goose Bay. The next flight we do will be, let's go and find out how far it will be, from Goose Bay to the southern tip of Greenland. So if we just do a measure distance, it will give us some idea. About 675, so a similar length flight. If we use something a bit faster maybe. How long's the runway over here? 6,400, so we can't use anything too big, but we should be okay, unless we go for, there's a bigger airfield further up the coast, isn't there? That's even smaller. Here we go. 3,000, no, that's rubbish as well. That's bigger. So Greenland is, yeah, quite remote, isn't it, to get to anything. So if we pull up the Google Maps for this, where are the roads? Perhaps there aren't any. Oh, there's a few little tracks here and there, but not much. Okay, so yeah, that leap across there should be okay, and then we're off to Iceland, and maybe our trip around the fjords to go up to visit the place made famous by the movie. Where are we? Terrain view. Who's Civic? There it is. and then following Iceland we'll go back via the Faroe Islands, possibly the Shetlands, and then down to back to Oxford where we started the entire journey. Although unless we go maybe Faroes, then down towards Ireland to include Ireland in the trip. Maybe we go Dublin, Belfast, Dublin, and then over to back to Oxford. We'll see. But it'll be good fun. Okay. Anyway, oh my word, look at the state of that. It's freezing up worse and worse. We need one of those trucks to come and spray us with de-icer, like they have in Helsinki and places like that. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Hopefully you enjoyed that, and I'll see you all again soon. Take care.